Good morning. I'm Detective Davidson, Catherine Davidson, C-A-T-H-E-R-I-N-E, D-A-V-I-D-S-O-N with the Calgary City Police. Today I'd like to talk about a warning to the citizens about a scam that has appeared to have escalated in the past few months. During 2014, police have become aware of 86 cases relating to what is often referred to as the Grandparent Scam. In each case, con artists have been contacting potential victims over the phone, posing as family member or friend in urgent need of cash. Often the scenario involves an accident or arrest while traveling, with a request that cash be sent through money transfer company, such as Western Union or MoneyGram, or by purchasing prepaid credit cards or gift cards, and sometimes even through a money transfer company, a courier company. In the typical scenario, a grandparent receives a phone call from a con artist claiming to be one of his or her grandchildren. The caller goes on to say they're in some kind of trouble, such as being in a car accident, needing bail money, or money to cover vehicle damages. The emphasis is on needing money immediately, and oftentimes the alleged relative is crying. In the majority of cases, a second suspect makes a follow-up call to the victim, claiming to be a lawyer representing their relative, and provides the details of how the transaction should be made. And there's often an urgency for that money to be sent, so that second person that calls really makes that person feel that they have to do it, and they have to do it now. Victims are convinced by the callers, and as I was saying, rushed into sending this money due to the emergency, only to find out afterwards that they've been defrauded. The caller specifically asked that their request be kept secret from other relatives by saying, you know, Grandma, it's just between you and me. Don't tell Dad, I'll tell him later. The alleged relative pretends that they're embarrassed for calling and that they just don't want anyone else to know. Between August and November of this year, there have been a total of 45 cases amounting to approximately $74,000 being stolen, and that's just in Calgary alone. Fortunately, in many of the cases, the money transfers do get cancelled. Otherwise, this number would be much larger. However, in one case alone, the suspects were successful in conning someone out of nearly $15,000. Variations of this scam do exist, such as someone posing as an old neighbor or a friend of the family. Predominantly, however, the emergency scam is directed towards grandparents. I would like to let Margaret explain her personal story on what happened to her. Okay, Margaret.
Thank you. Well, I guess I have to speak properly for the other 44 victims. I guess that's what we are. And I have to say that this scam has been worked out extremely carefully. They try to catch you when you're at your worst, either early in the morning or, in my case, late Friday. So it's all very carefully organized, and they're very careful in their little pitch. They have it so well memorized that they get quite annoyed if you don't give the right answer. And this phone call came, as I say, late on a Friday afternoon when I was really wiped out. And I wasn't thinking, obviously. But there it is. There were several things that did bother me at the time. One of the things that bothered me was that, first of all, this phone call was supposedly from Montreal. So there were several things that were dubious, and I should have hung up right then. I didn't, because, as I explained to the detective, I've been the go-to person since my husband died in 1960, and I'm the one who gets everybody out of trouble with money or whatever. And so this was not totally new to me. I had done it before and got away with it, as you like to put it that way. So that's what happened. Then there was the insistence on using a courier company, which immediately put my back up, because I don't use courier companies. It's not something I do. And I didn't see why I should do this.
Margaret, do you recall what they said the actual emergency was on your case?
Oh yes, it was a car accident.
Margaret, do you want to tell them how they asked you to send the money?
They wanted it sent in cash by courier.
Did they put anyone else on the phone to convince you that this?
No, I was obviously an easy mark.
So like it was just the person who phoned you was supposedly your
Grandson.
but they didn't put a doctor or a lawyer or anybody else on the phone with you? Okay.
No.
How much money did they ask for, Margaret? She's
No.
asking how much money they asked for from you.
Do I have to?
You don't
No,
have to know.
then I won't. Thank you.
So can you tell us, did someone come to your house to pick up money? Like how did that happen?
They wanted it delivered to the courier company.
Oh, I see.
And why did you decide to cancel, Margaret?
Because by this time I was extremely suspicious. And I couldn't get hold of anybody because it was, as I say, late on Friday. I tried to get hold of my son, but unfortunately I couldn't get hold of him. I couldn't get hold of my grandson. I couldn't get hold of anybody.
And did you have to do this all Friday night to get the money?
Oh yes, there was really push, push, push.
Did they have any information that they were giving on the phone that made you think that, yes, this is my grandson?
They had some, not as much as they should have had. So I should, as I say, by this time I was getting extremely suspicious.
Would you be able to know how they would obtain that information?
I have no idea.
Sorry, Margaret. Most times, I believe that they're phoning from some form of list. I'm not sure where these lists come from, and what it appears to be is that the person answering the phone often provides the name of the relatives. So when the young person posing as the grandson will say, you know, Grandma or Grandpa, it's me, and then the person on the other end thinks, who could that be? At that time they say, is this Johnny? And then the person on the other end says, yes, this is Johnny. So often, what we're finding in most of the cases, the person being called believes that they unfortunately gave the bad guy the information.
But there's no, like, more personal information beyond a name or a location?
Most times, we believe the information is coming from the victim, and that the person on the other end is guessing. That's what most often appears to happen.
They say, oh, well, is that Granny? And they did call me Granny, which is what I am called. I'm not called Grandma, for reasons that doesn't interest anybody. But I said, oh, yes, and where are you? Thinking that this grandson would be where he ought to be, which is BC, actually. And he said, well, I'm in Montreal, and I'm down here with a friend whose mother has just died. I mean, this was very pitiful and la, 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 la. And the story was that the grandson was supposed to have rented a car, which struck me as extremely odd. There were a whole lot of things that didn't make very good sense, but this was the story, and so all right, he's behaving peculiarly, he's in a strange place, and so on and so forth. So, and he was supposed to have not understood the car rental contract that he presumably had signed. So I thought, well, this doesn't make very good sense to me, but who knows, as I say, what families will do. And so I said, well, so what's the problem? And then I was told that he was in this hole because of not having understood the car contract, the rental contract. That was the story.
And they needed the money.
And by this time, I was getting a little annoyed. Not the way I expected to be treated. But
And
there
so
you
can I
are.
just ask, so would it be fair to say they wanted thousands of dollars or hundreds of dollars? Can you say that?
Oh, they kept needing more.
So would you say?
They kept
thousands?
increasing it.
Okay, but would it be fair to say thousands?
Not really.
Hundreds?
A little more than hundreds.
Okay. And so when did you cancel it again?
I tried to cancel it almost immediately.
So you went to your bank, you got the money out, you went to the courier,
Yes,
and then
yes.
you started to think,
And did the courier thing, and then having considered it, decided, no, I don't want to do this. So I tried to, as you say, cancel it.
I understand the payment they're required to pay in any of these scams is it varies now. It used to be
It does.
wiring money. Now it's not just wiring money anymore, and that's why it's kind of changed.
Historically, I guess Western Union has been a typical way to transfer money for them. Western Union does post several warnings on their site about fraudulent activity. They try many different other ways of transferring, either MoneyGram or a courier, or even through e-bank transfers. Yeah, so it's many different ways of transferring money, and that I would suspect that would be to make it complex.
and you mentioned in the press release the gift cards, or is that
Yes.
something new?
Yes. It seems to be more escalating recently, and I'm not quite sure why of that. But yes, through this fraud and other frauds, the prepaid credit cards are often used as well.
And can I ask you a bigger number you're seeing right now? Any reason why you're seeing the scam more prevalent, or people reporting it more?
Well, it is Canada-wide, so I'm not sure if it's per area, or maybe a certain area gets targeted for a period of time and then it moves. I'm not quite sure why it is escalating, but possibly if they're successful, then I guess they will continue in a certain area. And that's why it's very important to have this media release go out, just to make the public aware, so that people can inform their loved ones or neighbors or friends who they think potentially could receive one of these calls.
And the advice would be wait until you can actually talk to a family member?
Absolutely, absolutely. There is no rush. You know, you're not going to get a call from the court saying, if you don't pay in the next 20 minutes, your grandson's going to jail. That's not going to happen. Any legitimate place will wait. They will wait for money. They'll wait for you to have a few days to talk to your loved one or a trusted neighbor or something to be able to confirm that story. There is never an urgency to send that money.
So what would you say to people if they get that late night call?
Hang up.
Margaret, have you had a chance to speak with your family and your actual grandson, and what have they kind of said to you?
Well, I tried to get hold of him, but I'm a little annoyed at him too. He did not phone me back as promptly as I had asked. But of course, he had no idea why I wanted him to phone me.
And the original call, just to clarify, they said they were calling from Montreal?
Yes.
Okay. And I guess, is that just a wild guess as to she would know somebody in Montreal?
Yeah, well, the theory was, you see, the grandson was dying to get back home, and so on and so forth, and couldn't afford to stay away in Montreal for however long this would take and all the rest of it. But as I say, by this time I was getting extremely dubious.
Do you find that these scammers, is it more random, or do you find that some of the scammers do research through social media before reaching out to potential victims?
I would suspect, like I said, there is some form of a list that's purchased. I don't know where they purchase these, but I would suspect it's more organized than going through social media. I think, and not saying that's for every case, I think that would take too long probably to try to research each person through social media.
Do you find most of these calls come from overseas, or are they local domestic scammers within North America?
A majority of these files, money is actually being transferred within Canada.
And so why did you want to come forward? Because it must be hard, right? And embarrassing and all those things.
Well, you feel like such an idiot.
But you just wanted other people not to.
Well, it is one's civic duty to do this kind of thing, you know.
Any other questions?
Yeah, one quick question. Obviously, you mentioned that there's over 80 cases reported. I'm assuming this is the type of case where a lot of cases don't go reported out of embarrassment or shame.
Correct. Yes. I'm speculating, but I would, yeah, agree with you that many are not reported, and it's just exactly what Margaret said. And many people I've talked to, they say they're embarrassed, and I think a really important word to get out there is, okay, you may feel embarrassed, but the scammer is the bad person. And I want people to talk about it, even though they're embarrassed. I want them to share it with their friends and family so that someone else can hear that story, either at church or
That's
whatever
right.
social place you go.
Yes.
Then they can say, I heard about that, and yeah, that's not going to happen to me.